7 killed in most massive Russian air attack, Ukraine says. Russia has launched one of its biggest air attacks on Ukraine of the war so far, the head of the Ukrainian Air Force has said. At least 7 people were killed and dozens wounded as missiles and drones were fired into more than half of Ukraine's regions on Monday. Power infrastructure was hit, causing widespread blackouts, as the entire country was put under air raid alert and told to take shelter. Russia confirmed it had launched attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, one of its long-term tactics, and said all its targets were hit. The barrage of missile and drone attacks began across the country overnight on Monday and continued into the morning. And much later in the day a civilian infrastructure building was struck by a Russian missile in the eastern city of Kryvyi Rih, leaving 1 woman dead and another 5 presumed missing, local military administration head Alexander Vilkel said on Telegram. According to Mykola Oleshchuk, the commander of Ukraine's Air Force, Russia launched 127 missiles and 109 attack drones overnight and into Monday morning. Out of them, Ukraine shot down 102 missiles and 99 drones, he said on Telegram. Mr. Oleshchuk called the combined strike the most massive aerial attack. NATO member Poland said an object entered its territory during the attack. Most likely it was a drone, and we assume so, because the trajectory of the flight and the speed indicate that it was definitely not a missile, said Army spokesman Jacek Goryszewski, quoted by Reuters. NATO spokesperson Farah Dakhlala condemned the attacks on Ukraine and said that breaches of NATO airspace by Russia were irresponsible and potentially dangerous, the agency said. Previously, an attack last December when 158 missiles and drones were fired at Ukraine had been considered the largest attack so far. While the main target of this attack was energy infrastructure, it was also an attempt by Moscow to strike at Ukraine's reserves of another key resource, Ural. Ukrainians have been electrified by the recent successful incursion of their troops deep into Russian territory in the Kursk region. With Monday's strikes, Russia was intending to bring ordinary people in Ukraine back down to earth with a bump, reminding them, and politicians in Western capitals, that the Kremlin still has the upper hand in this war. The message from Moscow was make no mistake, Russia can still inflict misery on the Ukrainian population whenever it chooses. Dozens wounded. Some 15 regions of Ukraine were targeted by Russia in the strikes, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said earlier, using weapons including drones, cruise missiles and supersonic missiles. There are wounded and dead, Mr. Shmyhal said on the Telegram social media app. Dozens of people were injured, and those who died included 2 men, one aged 69 and another aged 47, were killed in separate attacks in the Dnipropetrovsk region, local governor Sergei Lysak said. Others were injured including a 14-year-old girl, he added. A man was killed when his house was hit in Zaporizhia, said the area's governor. The mayor of Lutsk said 1 person had been killed when an infrastructure facility was hit. 5 others were wounded and most parts of the city had no running water, he added. In Izium in Kharkiv region, a man was killed in a missile strike, the regional head said. And in Zhytomyr region in western Ukraine, a woman died after homes and infrastructure buildings were hit by missiles, the governor said. The attacks caused serious damage to infrastructure, with power outages reported in many cities, including Kiev, and water supplies disrupted. One of the remaining power stations, a hydroelectric plant north of Kiev, was one of the latest targets. The damage is still being assessed. Russia has been targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure since early on in its full-scale invasion, which began in February 2022. In recent months it has renewed its campaign of attacks on the power grid, causing frequent blackouts across the country. In June, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia had destroyed half of his country's electricity generating capacity since it began pummeling its energy facilities in late March. Ukraine is buying energy from the European Union. However, this is not enough, and so most days, the country has a planned nationwide blackout to protect critical needs such as hospitals and military sites. Russia's defense ministry said it attacked electricity and gas facilities, as well as sites storing Western weapons. All designated targets were hit, resulting in power outages and disrupted rail transport of weapons and ammunition to the front line, it said. It has been a year of bad news on the battlefield for Kiev, with Russia gaining ground steadily in the eastern Donbas region. There have been problems with mobilization and reports that Ukraine is running out of men. But following Ukraine's surprise incursion into Kursk, the videos of soldiers hoisting the Ukrainian flag over Russian villages they had seized gave a badly needed boost to Ukrainian morale. And it showed the West that Kiev is still capable of carrying out complex, daring and, most importantly, successful offensives. On Monday, Mr. Zelensky called on Western allies including Britain, America, and France to change their rules and let Ukraine use their weapons to strike deeper inside Russia. Ukraine is allowed to use some Western weapons to hit targets inside Russia, but not long-range weapons. And he said, we could do much more to protect lives if European air forces worked with Ukraine's air defense. Also on Monday, Ukraine tried to attack an oil refinery in Yaroslav, a city northeast of Moscow, according to the regional governor. No casualties or damage have been reported. And Russia's defense ministry said it had destroyed 9 drones over its Saratov region, which is 560 miles, 900 kilometers, from the Ukrainian border.